as I was reading your biography and also his intellectual biography in lieu of ideology, one of the things that struck me was that he was one of the first actual true-blooded social scientists in Singapore, and that brought data, economic data and empirical evidence into decolonization politics, which means that I think if you look across Southeast Asia, a lot of the independence movements, you had very strong rhetoric, which was very common across the board, but not everyone had that data to back up their what they shared, and the data gave a clear picture of what a family or a household in Singapore looked like, and that kind of added color to the picture, a very robust color to the picture as to why Singapore needed to be decolonized. You highlighted in your book this example of his study when he was in LSE, where he had to interview Singaporean households on their national income. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What did he do that was quite unique that maybe other people weren't doing in Southeast Asia?
Data is important. I think reality is important. He would have been an academic and a darn good one if he had his brothers, okay? So he did the first social survey of Singapore. I think to also understand Dr. Goh, his working life as a civil servant, always with social welfare. His main concern is the betterment of the standards of living. It is their entitlement. Every citizen must achieve a higher and higher standard of living. For that, you need data. So he did the first social survey of Singapore in Singapore. This wasn't in his London days. And he ate with the trishaw drivers. My mother-in-law told me that. He actually did the surveys. He must have divided into teams. I don't know how many people he had, but he actually was part of the survey. You know, he was he was a very hands-on person. And he realized how poor they are, okay? I mean, the poverty, you have to read his oral history or the oral history of Mr. Lim Kim San to realize. And his constituency was Telok Ayer, Chinatown. I mean, a very poor district in which people don't just share a property. They share a room. And there was one person who shared a bed, okay? So someone had a day job, someone had a night job. So it's extreme poverty. And I particularly like this photograph of Meet the People session in those days, where you see a very engrossed minister with a frown on his face. And there's this constituent of his, a female, barefoot. She puts her leg on the bench, very comfortable talking to the minister. There's an interpreter. The background says that this is about the year stateless people must register if they want to be a citizen. But those were the days when the minister, those who govern and those who are governed are just so close together. And he realized he was not even happy with his results, I surmise, of his first survey. So when he went to LSE, this was his second first degree. He already had a degree from Raffles College. He chose statistics. He wanted to hone his skills in statistics, what statistics tell you, and how to do better surveys. Okay, and to do that, you have to read a lot, and already he's politically aware, and so he's also very exam smart. He once told me, if you want to do a PhD, you better choose a subject that is, one, original, secondly, very manageable. Okay. You don't want to kill yourself over it. So since he has other interests, he chose a subject, an alternative way of measuring income, which he knew he could complete in months, so that he could, on one instance, did some work for Lee Kuan Yew, political work, whilst he was in London. On the other hand, he was spending all his time at LSE's library, I was told, okay? He just read and read and read. And in his oral history, he said, what would I have done differently if I didn't go into politics? I would like to study what happened in South America at the turn of the century. He said, South America had the highest GDP, okay, in a certain period of time. And he tried to correlate it, and he said, at that period, almost all those countries were governed by oligarchs. Is there a relationship between oligarchy as a form of government and fast economic growth. He wanted to do that because he has a theory. He wanted to confirm it. And then he laughed and said, but I'm too old and I have to be able to read Spanish, okay? Because he's an academic. Primary sources are in Spanish. But you see, his interest is even outside of the borders of Singapore. The world is his interest. The human being is his interest. He sees this person, the sentry that makes him every time he passes, and he asks himself, how does he feel? He does nothing else but stand on guard for hours. So he asked the psychologist in the army, why don't you do case studies for me? Why don't you and publish it? So Youth in the Army was published. I think they had 5 case studies. So the human, the humble sentry, he's curious about his mind. I guess he wanted to give more meaningful work to the sentry, and he was curious what kind of mind will accept sentry duty and what can he do about it.